chemistry has gotten blown way out of the water. You aren't going to always have chemistry with your spouse. Like Elisha and I went in and out of feeling chemistry when we were dating. Right. This can be avoided with an arranged marriage. When parents go, okay, this guy has all these qualities. He's going to be a great husband. He's going to seek the Lord. He's going to be a good father. He's going to be a good provider. He's interesting. Okay, that's a good guy that I can trust my daughter marrying.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, Katie and I are going to be talking about whether or not we're advocates of arranged marriages and whether or not we've considered arranging the marriages of our children with their future spouses. So if you've always wondered what we thought about on this topic, now you have the opportunity to hear our thoughts on the topic. Folks, thank you all so much for leaving ratings or reviews, whether you listen on Spotify or on iTunes or any other platform. When you take the time to either hit the star rating button, or ideally the 5th star rating, or leave a review, that really helps our podcast reach more people. And if you watch our podcast on YouTube, we would love it if you're able to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, leave a comment. All those things really help our podcast reach more people.
Yeah, I mean, like, even if you think it's like 4 stars or like 3 3/4 stars, it's just still easier to hit the 5-star button. You don't have to do the math.
Or maybe the episode you're listening to is you feel like is a 3-star, and maybe just try look for another episode, and then maybe give that one a chance. Like don't rate us on your least favorite episode. How about that?
Maybe it's like negative stars.
All right, let's get this rolling.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
Folks, before we get going in today's episode, I do want to let you know that we're going to link Katie's free masterclass down below that walks you through how she's been able to create, in my mind, the most delectable. She's been able to create a peaceful home that we both love living in. And I will say this as her husband, someone that knows her quite well, is that the tools and the systems that she's created, I feel like I'm the biggest I'm the biggest beneficiary of those tools and systems. And so I feel like Katie's thriving when she's operating in this operating system, and I feel like I'm the benefactor. Did I say the beneficiary? Am I the benefactor? Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but that was really sweet. I didn't know you were going to say that.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a great resource, and we rarely link that free webinar. And so I just wanted to...
Yeah, we don't talk about it on the podcast a lot.
Exactly. So I was going to take this moment to talk about it.
Thanks. Well, I'm glad. Yeah, I agree. There are times that I'm not operating in the Get It All Done Club operating system, and our whole house feels it. And then it's funny, Elisha often... in a very kind, gracious, problem-solving way. When I'm asking for help, it's like, oh, well, let's implement this or let's implement that. And he really points me back to the systems in the Get It All Done Club. So I'm really grateful for that.
Well, they're all your ideas.
Or like smart people's, like other people's ideas.
Sure, you put your own spin on them.
Yeah.
There's nothing new under the sun, right?
It's true. Right. I was like, I can't say like I got all those ideas from somewhere else. I think what's unique about the Get It All Done Club is they're all in one place, and they're all directed towards motherhood.
Yeah, well, and also the community you've created, I feel like, is its own in and of itself.
Oh, that's
crazy
incredible.
Value. Yeah,
the women in there are insane. We just. Not actually insane, like very wonderful. I just did a call this last week, a live call doing a Q&A. We do a monthly Q&A, and it was just, I'm always blown away by the women's like maturity and insight. And yeah, I always love those calls. So, okay, that was it. We were going to talk about arranged marriages, though.
Yeah. What were you going to say about, like, when we were newly married or when we were dating?
No,
what
we
were
dating. Okay, we were dating. And we're standing around the kitchen island at my grandparents', and Elisha's like, I really just am a fan of arranged marriages. I just think that parents know their kids best. They should arrange the marriages. He's like, I like all the things about you on paper, and then I know that... like chemistry can form after you're married. And
I'm saying this to you,
Yeah, you're saying this to me.
and we're not married.
No.
That's wild, man.
Yes. I was not
wonder-
stoked
yeah,
about
I
it. I'm
wonder-
like, so what? Is this just like, I'm just like a check the boxes on your sheet of paper thing?
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty romantic thing to say. I'm really surprised you didn't just fall for me right there.
Well, I fell for him a long time earlier, or I wouldn't have fallen for him right there. But then, yeah, you were literally saying this. And the irony in this whole situation is my parents were greatly opposing our union at this point in our dating relationship.
Yeah.
And that's why it was like making me so frustrated, because I'm like, you realize that like my parents wouldn't have picked you for me. I know who my dad would have picked for me. He brought multiple guys to me at different times. And I was just like, are you kidding me? No. So
That's hilarious. Wow, I didn't.
yeah, I was just like, what are you even talking about?
I mean, I was probably being kind of cheeky, wasn't I? Or being a little facetious.
Well, I didn't know you very well back then.
Sure. But
I
it is
had a hard time
ironic
knowing when you were
that,
laughing.
that your parents were opposed at that point.
Yeah, it was just so funny.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that, well, I mean, yeah, so we're not advocates, I think, of arranged marriages I mean, I don't even know like what the accepted definition of that is. Like the mothers and the fathers of children get together and they agree with each other to have their children grow up and be spouses. That's
Like the kids have no say in it.
right.
Probably.
Yeah, the kids have no say in it.
It's like all parent based.
Yeah. We're not advocates of that, but I do think I'm an advocate of being thoughtful about the network that my children are going to grow up in, because most likely that is going to be where they find their spouse. Like proximity is like the number one factor in how, like, it's like the number one deciding factor for, why people get married. And it's proximity at a certain age range. Like, it's not like, proximity when they're 4 years old or 9 years old or 12 years old. It's like we're just us as humans. We grow up, we become young adults, and we start, here in the West, it's a little later than it has been at different times in history, but we start looking for a spouse. And so whoever you are networked with at that point, just as the likelihood of, your spouse coming from that network is high.
I would say this is the plot line of every rom-com ever, is proximity makes you fall in love. Because I feel like it always starts out with like an unlikely couple who hate each other or started off on the wrong foot, or who are like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like that's the complexity, but then they like happen to be on the same plane, stuck on the same boat, on the same vacation, something where they can't get away from each other and they end up falling in love.
I see.
And I feel like that's actually pretty consistent with the truth, unless someone comes in and is in close proximity too. And then there's like an option.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I was tracking fully, because you're saying what actually does produce long-lasting relationships is people kind of...
Is rom-coms.
No, I feel like that's like the most destructive thing for marriages.
I know, I heard that somewhere in a TED Talk.
But what you're saying is that like when people basically are, I say forced, but they're, because of circumstances, around each other for extended periods of time. And then they're able to break through
when
annoyances.
Forced.
Yeah, okay, when proximity's forced, basically. Because I was going to say, I feel like the premise of a lot of rom-coms is that they break out of their network. And that's why everybody has this fantasy of somewhere out there, like not here. No way am I going to find a spouse here, but outside of my hometown, outside of my church or my college. Because I think the idea of meeting somebody on an airplane, or whatever, at a coffee shop in a different country is just so mysterious. And there's all this, I guess, romance built into that story. But go ahead.
No, you're so right. Yeah.
So I think that the premise is deceitful, because what actually brings this committed relationship, I do think, is some level of, again, for lack of better term, forced proximity. That's like you're in the same class together for a full semester. You're volunteering at the same youth camp, right? You're going to the same church. And so you're just keep showing, or you work together, right? Workplace relationships where you just keep showing up. And then that, I think, is usually what
it's going to trigger attraction in one or the other person.
Right.
Not always both people. But I think of that with, I think there's just so much we can learn from rom-coms.
Well, okay.
I think that both of those things are true. I think it does push a false narrative of this adventure is out there, but the irony is that often the adventure is like the jerk that stole your airplane seat, and then you fall in love with that guy or that girl. What? That's consistently what happens in rom-coms.
I know, but I feel like you're advocating that because
No, I'm not advocating it. What am I advocating? What do you think I'm advocating?
Like the jerk stealing the seat, or
no, I'm saying it's all made up. But I'm saying that you would think for yourself as a single girl, okay, watching a rom-com, like adventures out there, I'm going to meet some romantic guy, whatever. And then the rom-com is saying it's never the person who you think you're going to fall for, though. They always
hate them at the beginning.
Yeah, they always hate them at the beginning because otherwise you wouldn't be watching, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You fall in love at the end.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying,
and usually,
why don't you just hate the guy in your hometown,
right?
And then marry him, and then fall in love with him.
Yeah, and I do think a plot. I mean, since we're talking about rom-coms, and I can't point to one in particular, but I do think something that transpires is they are, you know, they're arch nemesis for some reason, and they can't stand each other. But circumstances forces them together, and I think that's what you were saying.
Yes.
So that they have to work on a project together, or they have to take care. They're their client, and so they have to, you know, have this ongoing business relationship, and so that forced proximity forces them through that really tense hatred towards each other.
Yeah. And I do think that that's something that a lot of people these days could benefit from because the sky is the limit and the world is your oyster. And all of these things with all these young people are dating these days where it's so easy to drop someone and just look for the next person. And then this person isn't living up to my great high expectations for them. I'm going to drop them and find the next person because people are a dime a dozen. Instead of really committing to some kind of relationship with someone and seeing it through and going through the hard stuff, I don't think people are a dime a dozen. I think that that's how they're treated. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so, great guys and great gals get dumped in this pursuit of this unicorn out there. And I hate to break it to you, but I married the only one. So.
No, okay. No. Well, I mean, I don't want to get into I guess this is kind of inevitable when you're talking about arranged marriages is dating and all that. But at some point you just have to want to get married enough to marry somebody. like I don't want to encourage anybody to get married when they're not stoked about getting married to the person.
No.
Right? Well, like if they're walking down the aisle and they're saying the vows, there should be a true level of excitement that they have at that point. So I'm not advocating, I don't think you are either, being like, hey, just get married, whether or not you're excited, and you'll work through the hard stuff. But I do think that you could maybe people could see through relationships a little bit more, even if they're not feeling the total excitement. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah,
well, there's two things that are pet peeves when it comes to the dating scene these days. It's nice to be out of it. So now I can just armchair quarterback.
So these are your pet peeves, or these are pet peeves?
Yeah, these are legitimate pet peeves because I have a lot of people I care about that are single still. So I can have pet peeves. All right. Wanting them all to be happily married, like myself. If you want to have more free time to do the things that you love to do and become more efficient at the tasks that you have to do each day, join the Get It All Done Club. There's thousands of women who have been through the program and who are currently in our private community that is off of social media. I'm in there monthly, live, answering your questions, talking with you guys, adding new content monthly. If you would like to get a little taste of what I teach in the Get It All Done Club and see a behind the scenes of what the program actually looks like, I do have a free masterclass for you guys. It's linked down below, and it will teach you how to have a more peacefully productive home this week. One of them is this whole chemistry conversation. Okay. Chemistry has gotten blown way out of the water in terms of you aren't going to always have chemistry with your spouse. Like you aren't going to always have chemistry. Like chemistry is infatuation to a certain extent, or I hear it kind of like talked about like infatuation. Like we just don't have this chemistry, and chemistry is something that can grow with a person or can leave when a person's being annoying. You don't really have this, like Elisha and I went in and out of feeling chemistry when we were dating.
Right.
Okay. Like there were times when I was just like could not wait to see him. And there were times when he was irking me so bad or I was irking you so bad, and we didn't like to be around each other. But at the same time, it was the list on the piece of paper that was holding us together. And I do think that that's something that, parents, when this can be avoided with an arranged marriage. When parents go, okay, this guy has all these qualities. He's going to be a great husband. He's going to seek the Lord. He's going to be a good father. He's going to be a good provider. He's interesting. Okay, that's a good guy that I can trust my daughter marrying. Or this girl seeks the Lord. She has a submissive heart. She's got a fun personality. She's beautiful. She's servant-hearted and all these things. She's going to be a great mother, a great wife. Okay, I couldn't pick someone better for my son. I do think that objectivity on a certain level can be helpful for people going around just searching for chemistry when I don't even know if they know what chemistry is. Because if you see all these dating shows, right? Like, it's been a really long time since I've seen a dating show.
Yeah, a couple weeks at least, right?
No. But you hear talk, dating shows.
Yeah, that's right.
Not gonna lie. Literally, just the other night I got into, it's been a long time. It's been years. But then the other night I told Elisha, Farmer Wants a Wife was recommended to me on my free day. And I'm on Elisha's account. So they must have known that I had his computer, or he's really into watching Farmer Wants a Wife.
It makes sense that would show up on my feed, actually.
I was like, what is this? But the whole thing is, you notice with these shows is the physical attraction or the chemistry or whatever, it doesn't hold a relationship together. It's nothing. So it's fun. It's the fun in a relationship. And you should have fun in your marriage. And marriage is a lot of fun. But there are people that have fun in dating that don't have fun in marriage.
Right.
And there's people that don't have a whole lot of fun in dating, which was Elisha and I, that have a whole ton of fun in marriage. So it's just not a real accurate thing, I guess.
Right.
When I hear people putting all this stock in chemistry, I'm kind of like, or if that's the reason for breaking up over and over, I'm just like, I don't know.
Again, everybody's making their own choices here, and they should be making their own choices. But would it be easier if they weren't making their own choices, I guess, or would it be more successful? And I think that's the question.
There'd be more successful marriages.
Yeah, and I think that's the question. What's the goal? Like, what does success look like? And I think that so much of the time we start out with personal happiness being the goal. And I'm not going to say that like I, set aside my personal happiness to get married. That's certainly not the case. My personal happiness was a top priority for me in my pursuit of Katie. But I do think that there are things that are of greater importance than my personal happiness. Obeying God, being obedient to Him. I do think that like wanting a family is a good thing. It's like, and so does wanting a family, I mean, maybe I would see that as feeding my happiness. I don't know. But being fruitful with your life, like the highest and best use of your life. And like, so you start thinking from that perspective, and because you know that your personal happiness is going to ebb and flow. Like it's never going to be this thing where you arrive at personal happiness. Once you're married to, like, my personal happiness has ebbed and flowed, right, since being married. And I'm so grateful I'm married to you. And so that's always going to be this fleeting thing, kind of like the wind, if you make it your primary aim. Whereas I think other goals can be a lot more stable and a lot more of a consistent horizon, where you're pursuing after the Lord and you're thinking, the Lord calls marriage a good thing. I should pursue marriage. It says it's not good for a man to be alone. And I'm speaking mostly to men, because it doesn't say it's not good for a woman to be alone. It does say it's not good for a man to be alone. So I do think it should be top priority for a young Christian man to get married, to find a spouse, as a way of following the Lord, obeying his design, his order. And then I think having children should be on his heart, and being a father because of the way the Lord speaks about that and really esteems that in his word, and the way that has such an impact in a community. And so when you're pursuing these things that are of greater value than your personal happiness, I'm not saying that you're like surrendering ever wanting to be happy. We are inevitably going to be like seeking pleasure and happiness in our life. But I just think you have to start off thinking, okay, there are things more important than my momentary happiness. And then I think it can get you through some like rough dates or rough weeks of dates. Maybe, if you hated dating somebody for 3 years, should you then get married? No, I don't think you should have been dating for 3 years if you hated it in the first place. But you and I, again, came home from dates numerous times, and I was in a way worse mood than when we started the date, and I was like, that was the worst. And we're on the phone still hashing it out, and being like, what are we even doing? This is a joke, and going to bed ticked off, and not in a great mood, only to wake up the next day and kind of start all over again.
I know. I don't know. I really liked you through the whole thing, though. And I do think
I liked you too. I never resented you, but I'm saying that we weren't like jiving.
Yeah, maybe that's what they just don't like someone very much. I think it's unfortunate in our day and age where women don't need men and men don't need women like they used to. Yep. And so I think that creates a lot of pickiness and pettiness in marriage. And I guess that was my other pet peeve that I wanted to bring up about breakups. And that is the things people make a big deal is kind of crazy. Like the things people will break up over that I've heard about breakups happening over. And maybe they're just trying to find a reason, but I'm kind of like, that was not worth arguing about at all.
Like shouldn't have even started?
No, it shouldn't have even started. That is so not a thing. And I just think that when you're young, you're petty and you don't know what matters in marriage. And a parent does know a lot more what things are going to make or break a marriage in terms of, even personal happiness. And it's typically not what the child thinks.
Well, this happened in our dating relationship.
Okay, wait, what?
I mean, well, maybe I shouldn't bring it up because maybe it's not petty, but it would be things like you finding out that I watched a certain movie and being like,
I was petty.
And be like, I can never marry a man that has seen that movie or that, advocates seeing that movie. I mean, being like, wow, this was like, 4 years ago. Like, and okay, I wouldn't watch it today. And
I had this after marriage too, but I was already married to you.
Yeah. I'm sure I was petty with you too. I was just thinking of things where I was on the receiving end of pettiness.
I was more that way with Elisha. And I think that this is something though, that isn't, going back to, I do think some girls that are hard to date are good wives. And I think the reason for this is because I think that it means that sometimes it can mean that they highly elevate marriage and they truly believe that once they're married, they're going to follow a guy to the ends of the earth and they are going to respect him. They are going to allow him to lead their family. They're fully committing their heart, soul, body, mind, everything to this man. And so you're looking for every single warning sign that you might not want to follow this guy to the ends of the earth. And so I think I was petty with things with Elisha because some of it was my own selfishness and immaturity. And then some of it was me going, okay, what does this represent? And you're trying to project into the future what this decision means. When Elisha went to the Taylor Swift concert,
that was another one.
That was something that I held against him for years, actually. But until I realized that my projections were totally false. Does that make sense? And so, yeah, like even with those movies, okay, now I know who Elisha is. I know his standards. I know the way he's faithful to me. I know the way he's like, what he's showing our children, he's so cautious of. What he shows himself, he's so cautious of. And so now I have so much trust in him that doesn't stress me out that he saw X, Y, and Z. Where at the time I'm going, what does this mean? What are his standards going to be for our home? What are his standards going to be for our children?
Yeah. I mean, so you said some things I think are really true, and that is men don't need wives anymore, or at least think that, and women don't need husbands anymore, meaning in the very practical way that like for centuries and centuries, men looked to women and women looked to men to fulfill a certain thing that they weren't able to do on their own. For women, protection and provision, right? Or for men, sexual partnership and companionship and a co-laborer in the work that they were doing. And women likewise, looking for that in men. What's crazy is that I really do think it comes back. I'll just speak from my own experience because I don't want to be the guy here like that got the luckiest man alive saying like, come on, men, get out there and get married, cause that always got on my nerve when I was single, and guys were like, step up, men, get out there and grow up and get married. So I'm not saying that, but it might sound like I'm saying that. Okay. No, I'll just, from my perspective, I did need to grow up and step up and pursue you in the way that you deserve to be pursued, because we tried one time. I tried like very half-heartedly, and I was pursuing you like I thought I was. I was writing letters and we were talking, and it was just too hard. It was too hard for me to pursue you, and it wasn't affirming me in the way that I thought I don't know, wanted to be affirmed or deserved to be affirmed. It wasn't fun, right? It wasn't some rewarding thing where I'm dating a girl now and I just feel like $1 million. And so I
my dad was a big gatekeeper, so there's that too.
Sure, but same thing. I should have had the perseverance, but I hit the eject button, and I found myself in another relationship that was all the things that I was looking for. This makes me feel like an awesome guy. It makes me feel like $1 million. Like I'm the hero here. All the friends like me. Whatever. I can go on and on and on. I was going to say all the parents like me, but it's like
half the parents like
him. Half the parents like me. And then, come to find out, it's like, okay, this was not at all what I feel like I want in a wife, and vice versa, what she was looking for in a husband. And so that wasn't at all right. But it was easy at the beginning. And then I come back to dating you, and I was vigilant. I was like, these things on paper do matter to me, and you do have them, and I'm going to pursue you. And the petty things would still come up, whether that was through, family situations, or it was through various things that you would hold against me. And they were the exact things that a year and a half prior or 2 years prior when we were dating, I would have been like, this isn't worth it. Like, why am I receiving all this flack for wearing this pair of jeans when I was like 19, or going to this concert or watching this movie or drinking these beverages? Like, I don't need to deal with this.
To sign a prenup for alcohol that he'd never touch it again.
Yeah. And the second time, I was like vigilant, and all those, not all of them, because you had grown up too, but a lot of those things were still there because you were taking marriage seriously. That was the gift. You weren't saying like, hey, who cares? Let's just have fun. We're dating. Because that could have made me feel awesome and been like, well, this is fun. She thinks I'm awesome. She thinks I'm the man. But instead, it's not like you never affirmed me. Obviously, you were dating me, and so there was some level of you being interested. But you held to these standards, and I respected that. And I think you said it really well, that some girls, I think, are really, or maybe they're no fun to date, or they're not very much fun to date, but they're really fun wives, right? Or maybe they're a challenge to date, but they're like the greatest wife in the world. And so I don't know what I was getting to say. Oh, I do think that sometimes men, this is the calling men up to step up. This is the big call, this is calling them up. It is worth sticking through what might feel like petty criticism or critiques. And it's easy to be like, well, man, she's like not making me feel like $1 million. I'm just going to, hit the eject button and go find somebody that will make me feel awesome from day one when we're dating. You want somebody that's going to make you feel awesome when you're married. And, from the time we've been married, I've felt like a king. You've made me feel like a king, and I've felt like a hero of our home. And so, that's,
you are.
Well,
you are a hero.
That was an awesome, I don't even know what point I was trying to make there, but
you got derailed on what a hero he is.
No, you make me feel that way.
I'm so grateful for you. And I'm blown away by the leader that you are for our family, just over and over. Well, you got your train of thought?
Yeah, were you going to say something else?
You cut me off.
Well,
guess you'll never know.
Well, I was going to go back to the arranged marriage thing.
Yeah.
Because
I'm just teasing you. Go ahead.
Okay. I do think we've heard like general Christianity in America, evangelicalism or general Protestantism, it's so vague on what the core tenets are. It's so individualistically driven, right? Mm-hmm. That's like our tagline. It's like, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. It's this personalized, customized religion, right? And I'm saying that tongue in cheek because I don't think that is what Christianity is. I think that's how it's viewed.
You think Christianity is also a religion, not just a relationship?
Yeah, it is religious. I also do
Yeah.
think that there are tenets of Christianity that everybody should hold to, and I do think that there are principles as well that Christians should pursue. But in the greater kind of like hundreds of denominations and kind of UBU culture of Christianity, just you have your personal relationship with Jesus and nothing else matters. With that whole kind of framework, I think it does make it really challenging, as opposed to maybe either other one sects of Christianity where there are more clear, whether it's traditional Catholics or more formal Protestants that are more serious about their doctrine and about their convictions. And I think it's certainly the case in like practicing Jews as well. Where those things on paper are a lot more clear. And so it's really obvious when you find somebody with those things on paper. Like, because I've heard girls and guys since I was like 12 be like, what do you want in a spouse? I just want them to love Jesus.
Yeah, and you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah, and you're like, okay, well, I think I know what love Jesus means, but that can look in 100,000 different ways, right? And I guarantee you a lot of those you wouldn't like in a spouse, right, for that person. And so the people that do get more specific on, I think this is what the Lord sees church being like. I think this is what God has ordained, ministers to conduct, how they should conduct themselves. I think this is what the family should look like. I think this is, how Christians are to engage in the workplace. I think this is how Christians are to engage in politics. The more you get specific on those things, the more obvious it is when you find somebody like that. And I think that you have a lot more respect for them from the beginning, and then you are willing to fight for that chemistry.
Yeah, that's something we really want to get more clear on in our lives, to be able to translate that to our children so that we can hopefully give them a better framework through which to try to find a spouse through, and make it obvious when they have found a good choice. Because I think sometimes it's not so obvious when you have found a real, like someone who's a really great marriage someone who is really great marriage material can look very similar to someone who's not in like the bigger evangelical picture. And you might let the good one go and take the bad one because you just aren't sure what the tenets of your faith are. You mentioned something about a girl being critical in dating. And I just want to point out, you obviously don't want a critical wife. And so that could be a character flaw. I would look at how she treats her father.
Yes.
Does she respect her father? Does she admire her father? Does she have a good relationship with her father? If those things are there, then those criticisms are probably coming from a good place. But like my mom always says, at the marriage retreat, she teaches that you don't want to pluck your rooster. And I think that is something, guys can go into marriage with these big old tail feathers and they're just, all shiny and these gorgeous roosters. And then after a week in the hen house, they got their tail feathers plucked. And that is a very real picture of what can happen in a marriage. And so you don't want to pluck the feathers of your rooster. And you want to make sure that that's not what this girl's going to do to you once you're married.
Yes, I agree. I don't think that a critical girlfriend equates a supportive wife. I think that could be a very valid red flag. Yeah. But I do think there are, just using our own example, and you weren't overly critical, but you had things that you really
hang-ups,
hang-ups, exactly. That I think the first time we were dating, I was like, I'm out of here. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The second time I fought through it, and it's like, you're such a you bolster my confidence and you build me up in marriage. And I had that confidence when we were dating the second time. I was like, no, like, I want this woman to be my wife. I want to be committed to her for forever.
And I think that's why he brought up the whole arranged marriage thing. I think that was the place you were coming from, is you were like, no, I feel like I went for this relationship that was easier for me. And now I'm coming back to a more challenging relationship because you do check all these boxes that I want in a wife. And so I'm going to see this through. And I think that was like your confidence in me, the way that you were communicating that. But it was funny because that's like the first arranged marriage talk I had. And I do think the girls that end up getting married do want to get married. You brought up too, we were talking about why couples, men and women, don't need each other the same way they used to. And even Christian men and women don't, because taking the sexual part out of it, they were just very practical needs. If you look at the man's top 5 needs and the woman's top 5 needs. There are practical ways that, like domestic support. Now guys just go out to eat all the time. They don't need a wife to
Uber
cook for
Eats
them. You know
or
what I mean?
Grubhub,
They can
yeah.
eat great food all the time. And so, or, that's appealing to their taste buds. That used to be like a really big win to get a wife that would cook for you.
Right.
So just these little things.
Yeah.
The effort that went into domestic support.
Right. And I do want to specify anything sexual outside of marriage is a sin. And so even if that's being, pursued out, you think like, oh, I don't need that because I've got whatever, casual partners, or I've got pornography, or that's sin. And that's in opposition to, that leads to death. And so I'm not validating that, saying, well, see, people don't need marriage. No, I think we do still need a spouse for sexual companionship.
I do think that that's been something that's been around for forever. Like that hasn't changed. People meeting that need outside of marriage throughout generations. It's looked different. But I do think like the domestic need is not there so much for men. I don't think the provision need is there so much for women. And so there's things like that. You didn't want to be a woman just alone in your father's house, and you were, because he was providing for you.
Right.
Now girls have money. They can go out, they could do their own thing. And oftentimes their career does get in the way of their marriage too, because they don't want to marry a guy that's going to make a move to, somewhere where his job is. And so anyways, there's just all these things that I think the landscape has changed that way, even outside of that sexual need, obviously, that I still think is a driving factor.
Yeah. And I guess the only thing is, so with all of that, I agree. And those can be some awesome things, being able to work as a woman, right? Being able to work with your unique abilities and be in the marketplace and add value. And then for a man, okay, you've got this ability to eat well, because even when you don't have your mom cooking for you anymore, you're able to move out and eat well and take care of your own home in some form or fashion. Maybe all those things are existing, but you still want to get married. And I think that's the question then, is like, how much do you want to get married? Because then you start, I think, maybe start putting some things that you are holding dear to you on the chopping block. And again, I hate using that term because it's like, oh, you have to compromise, you have to sacrifice. It's like, well, you're not, because the thing that you're getting is so much better. It's like, what did I give up when I got married? I gave up singleness. I gave up, freedom. I gave up, some spontaneity, flexibility. I gave up accountability in a lot of ways, right? I could just do whatever I wanted to do. So I could dwell on all those things. But what I got is astronomically more valuable than all those things I lost. And so there is the grieving of something, the mourning of something, the losing of something when you get married. And so that's going to happen, but you have to believe, and I think this is true, that marriage is so much better than all of those things. That's why you're doing it in the first place.
Well, maybe there was grieving and mourning and gnashing of teeth with Elisha. I experienced none of those things when I got married. Truly. I think I'm reading that book, Strangely Bright. I would love to talk about it like a lot because I just got into it. But our God is a God of yes. And in the garden with Adam and Eve, he said, hey, eat all these fruits except for one. And that was God saying, enjoy all these things. I have given you all these things to enjoy. And here on earth, he has given us all these things to enjoy, and the boundaries are what make it enjoyable. So it wasn't like, hey, I don't want you to have a good time. That one tree represents the good time and the most enjoyable thing that you could have had if you weren't following me. That's how Satan pitched it. And that's how the devil still pitches things today. But God's saying, no, I said yes to all these things. And we like to fixate on the no and think, well, why did he say no? It must be better because he said no. He's withholding it from us. And I think it's, our view of God shouldn't be that way where, oh, well, he's withholding the best from us. No, he's given us the best. His design is the best. And there's no loss in embracing that design. Like Adam and Eve didn't lose the tree of the garden. Like they didn't need to mourn that they couldn't have the fruit from the forbidden tree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree. Yep. That's right.
Anyways, I do think that girls that want to get married, though, I'm not saying that there isn't like a letting go.
Well, I'm going to say one more thing too, just to like correct something. I say things all the time that I regret, but just since I'm thinking about this in time, I said, someone loving Jesus can look 100,000 different ways. I actually don't think that that's true. I think people loving Jesus has a lot of consistency in how it looks and what our lives look like. The question is, I think people can think 100,000 different things of what loving Jesus is, and they can have 100,000 different ideas of who Jesus is. And so just saying that actually doesn't give you very much insight into a person's faith and their values and their principles and what kind of spouse they're going to be. You really have to ask, well, which Jesus are you loving? Who is Jesus? What has he done? And what is life? What does loving him look like? I think, yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Because I don't think loving Jesus and following him
looks a lot of ways.
Looks
it
100,000 different.
Or it is one way.
It is one. I think there's obviously personalities and there's different giftings, but it's not like, oh, I love Jesus by doing this thing that's so far outside, God's will. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'm glad you clarified that. That totally makes sense. I do think, like speaking from experience, girls that want to get married, that just desire that, do end up getting married often. I'm saying if they have options, okay? So some girls, maybe you aren't out there socially, maybe like there just hasn't been a guy that's come and approached you. And so for whatever the case may be, that's a frustrating place to be into, trying to find the place where you're going to connect socially and meet someone with that romantic connection. But if you're being pursued, I feel like those girls do end up, if you want to get married, you do end up getting married. I guess what I'm trying to say is when I was single, I gave people a chance. And I dated people that I was not physically attracted to, that I did not have chemistry with in the beginning, because I valued who they were as a person. And I thought they will be a good husband and father.
How much chemistry did you get down the road with them? What are we talking about here?
Enough.
Yeah.
Enough.
Okay. Don't say that.
To the place where I was considering marriage, and obviously like Elisha was this. You guys know he was my ideal. I thought he was the fantasy that was out of reach. And I was not settling in my mind for these other relationships, but I did boil it down to, is he going to take care of me? Is he going to love the Lord? Are we going to seek the Lord together? Is he going to be a good father? And kept going with that and let the feelings grow, if that makes sense, and the attraction grow. And then when Elisha and I reconnected, I didn't have to work on any of that side. It just happened. And if anything, I was more, because I didn't know him as well, I was more concerned making all the boxes line up. Okay. Because I did have that initial attraction to him, and that's what led our relationship for me. And so I think, anyways, but I'm just saying, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say here, but I've experienced chemistry growing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've experienced attraction growing because the nature of marriage and partnering with someone for life was in a fruitful way was a motivator, right, and was appealing to me. Yeah. Even if the person wasn't like, the number one on my dream list. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I think that's something that can totally happen. And I think I speak so strongly about this because I have experienced it, even though I haven't experienced it in marriage, because the Lord was like, hey, I'm just going to give you everything you've ever dreamed of. And that's been incredible.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. Just in closing, getting it back around to the arranged marriage, okay?
It's so hard to stay on this topic.
It is. I do think that as parents, we have this amazing opportunity. I don't think we need to go arrange marriages, but I do think we get to have a huge say in who our children are around. And our children are going to be social. They're going to go out and find people to, just live life with, right? They want to go be social and have fun and fellowship, and hopefully it's wholesome, and hopefully you raise up a child that desires that. But if you can go even a step further and actually giving them the opportunity for it as well. I think there are a lot of kids that actually have great desires as young adults, but then their desire to just be social is also a great desire. And so they're going to choose being social. Then all of a sudden they're in a network that's really not that uplifting or high caliber. And that's most likely where they're going to find their spouse. And so I do think that my parents went above and beyond. And that's the whole reason we're married, I guess. It's like we're not an arranged marriage, but we're arranged in the sense that my parents were at the same homeschool conference that your parents were at, which then had my sisters meet you, which led to our whole relationship. And then we were at the same family camp where you first saw me. And then we were at the same music camps. And like our parents weren't accidentally going to these things. They were intentionally going about finding like-minded people for themselves to be built up with, but also for their children. And so I think that that's a reasonable thing to plan on doing as a parent. Say, no, I'm not going to go pick my spouse for my children, but I am going to pick the church that we're going to. I'm going to pick,
you could
the
pick
theology.
the pool that they're
the
picking
pool.
from.
Yeah.
I think I've heard someone say that before.
Okay, nice. Yeah. And ideally give them a big enough pool where they can be very engaged, on a social level. And so that they're not getting too eager to go out on their own at too young of an age and really go find themselves in another pool.
Yeah, I think that's something too. I was reading a book a long time ago called Top of the Class, and it was specifically, it was two Asian sisters writing about the Asian culture in academics. And they were saying how their parents picked who their peers and friends would be in high school at 2 and 3 years old. They started seeking out these families to hang out with because the parents had similar goals in mind for their kids academically. And so then these girls went into these big public high schools where there's the whole gamut of motivation levels. And already they had this core peer pressure that was coming from friends that their parents had put them around at young ages. So I think that there's this element too of maybe our kids aren't going to be best friends or they aren't going to marry the people that they are around now. It's probably highly unlikely they're going to marry their friends that they have now. But I do think that you're still creating an appetite and helping them choose what is a good friend, who is not a good friend while they're still in your home. So even when they go out and they pick their own friends, they have this criteria with which to look through that you have helped them cultivate in these younger years. And I think that that's like, if we're just sending them to a public institution all day and it's kind of like, okay, whoever they meet there is just their friend for now. And then I'm going to teach them good qualities here at home. And then one day, hopefully they're going to make good decisions and pick a good spouse. It's like, it's not necessarily going to translate real well. And I think a lot of parents are shocked in high school with who their kids pick as friends or boyfriends and girlfriends. And it's like, well, it totally follows that they formed their own criteria and then they kept that criteria. And now there's just bigger repercussions because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's like God's sovereign over all things, but he uses his sovereign plan, which is his agents, us, and just the natural order of things to, I guess, execute his sovereign plan. And that involves just human decisions. Right. And so you can say in a lot of ways, it's like every marriage is arranged on some level where it's like your parents chose to put you into different schools. They chose to move you to different towns. They chose, maybe to exclude you from different groups. They on some level, your parents, either because you're reacting against what they did, or you're going in line with it, had an arranging of your marriage. And so I know that's not what people are talking about when they talk about arranged marriages, but I don't think we should be weird about being intentional, even with that being down. Like, I don't know, people are like, we fell in love in college. It was just like, so like serendipitous. And you're kind of like, well, you're at the same college. That's no, it's like no surprise, like that you both ended up at the same college and you're, whether it's a Christian college or whether you're in the part of the Christian, community in a secular college. That all actually seems kind of like arranged in a lot of ways when you actually go up, upstream a bit and see what got them there.
Yeah. So while we don't want to like give our kids a contract and say, hey, you're marrying so-and-so because they seemed nice and we decided with their parents, we do want to be intentional with arranging who our children are going to formulating. Right now, who they're looking for in a friend, talking about who they want to look for in a spouse. I don't think it's ever too young to talk about stuff like that. And then also being intentional about putting them in pools of people as they get older. If a pool is kind of souring or it seems like it's not healthy, taking them out of that one up until the point where they're on their own. And Lord willing, they start doing that for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Amen. All right, we can go. We've talked enough about arranged marriages.
We talked about a lot of other stuff too.
All right, folks, we'll talk about other things next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.